Okay, so settling in your posture, sitting upright, feeling the weight of your body on the seat or cushion. And just giving yourself a few moments to land where you are. And then tuning into the breath in the body. Seeing if you can let your breath naturally deepen on the in-breath, lengthen on the out-breath. Finding a soothing, grounding rhythm of breathing. And allowing the breath to bring you more fully into your body, more fully present. Okay, so we have an hour and a quarter together in what is quite a big topic. So I will do what I can, but I won't try to cover the full sweep of Buddhism. Alan and I tried to do that in 5 days last year, and it was quite challenging. So 1 hour, 15 minutes is even more challenging. And I think I want to make the session quite practice oriented. So lead maybe one, maybe two practices that give you a feeling of what I'm talking about. And the first thing I wanted to mention is that in the West, secular mindfulness has become a much bigger phenomenon than Buddhism. It's strange to have been involved in Tibetan Buddhism for the last 25, 30 years. And during that time, see how this phenomenon of secular mindfulness has completely eclipsed Buddhism, you know? Even at Samye Ling, there are so many more mindfulness courses than Buddhist courses. You know, in the days when Samye Ling was open. One day it'll open again, I hope. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I think that it's very useful to bear in mind that mindfulness, as we tend to practice it, very much comes out of Buddhism. I know that mindfulness can be found in other spiritual traditions, but the source for secular mindfulness very much has been Buddhism. So it's useful to know that. I'm sure you all do know that. But I think the thing that I notice is that it's a bit like mindfulness as this extraordinary skill has flown the nest of Buddhism and has come to land in another paradigm. So whereas the Buddha Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, were the context that held the practice of mindfulness, we now find that neuroscience and psychology have become the context that hold the practice of mindfulness. And that very much seems to me to be the reality, you know, that actually in the West, neuroscience is the new religion, you know. Buddhism is like a sort of, you know, people are very interested in Buddhism and they're interested in where mindfulness comes from, but in a way they believe the neuroscience, whereas in the East they would believe the teachings of the Buddha, you know. So I find that that's an interesting and tricky phenomenon, you know, that the Dharma that holds mindfulness is neuroscience and psychology. So that's just one point to make. And whether that's a bad thing or a good thing, I don't know. It just is the reality of where things are at actually right now. But I think the thing about the Dharma holding mindfulness is that the Dharma has a very big perspective, or a very big, a very big time scale is involved in the Dharma. It's not just this life. And I think very much in the modern world, we focus very much on this life as we know it. And neuroscience is very much about the brain, you know, and how the brain operates in this life. The idea of many lives is taken with a pinch of salt by many people. And even many Western Buddhists talk about a kind of new Western Buddhism where we've dropped reincarnation and dropped the idea of karma, how our actions in this life shape the trajectory of our consciousness in future lives. Okay, for many people that doesn't seem to fit the kind of modern context we're in. And even many Western Buddhists have dropped that. I know some of the traditional Tibetan Buddhists look at this with sort of dismay, you know, particularly Drupal Rinpoche, one of the teachers of Samye Ling, feeling that something really big could get lost here if we just drop basically reincarnation from the equation, you know. The problem about reincarnation is you can't so easily prove it, you know, and we live in a world of proof. I mean, there are many stories, but, you know, it can't really be proved. But I'm just going to make a few points before I move on to the practices. And my sense is that the view of the Dharma of many, many lives gives a sense of appreciating how precious this life is. Okay, the kind of view is you've been around for many, many lifetimes. Okay, and in these many, many lifetimes, there are many other realms of incarnation you have been in, and some of them are not been very pleasant, you know. So this is where we get into some of the kind of like heavy stuff, you know, of Buddhism about hell realms and spirit realms and animal realms, you know. But the point that is made is that if you're born as a human being with a basically healthy body and a mind that can comprehend the teachings, and you have the freedom and leisure to practice, you are incredibly lucky. So really take this to heart and don't waste time, because this life, as we all know, slips away very quickly, you know. And before we know, you know, we're on our deathbed looking back and looking forward to who knows what, you know. So I think this really gives us, this perspective gives a feeling of the vastness of what we might be in terms of many, many lifetimes, you know. You know, maybe 25 years from now, neuroscience will be very, very different. You see, that's the thing about the science, it's always changing, you know. So the Dharma view is this life is precious, don't waste it. So really tame your mind now, train your mind now, because you don't know where you might end up when you die. Okay, so that's a big point, you know, in Buddhism. And the big point that goes along with that is the idea of karma, how we act, the kind of patterns we cultivate and the kind of emotions we feed in this life, how they might shape the karmic trajectory going into future lives. And I know this is a very tricky one, you know, open to much debate. I know Paul Gilbert hates this one, you know, he kind of can't stand the idea of, you know, your personal karma shaping future lives, because he goes with the perspective of it's not your fault, you know, we're shaped by evolutionary forces. So, you know, this is quite complex, this topic, but I think the point is clear. The point is this life is precious, and how you use your mind right now in this life is very, very important. Even if you don't believe in reincarnation, still we can see in the course of this one lifetime how if we just sort of feed afflictive negative emotions and live unconsciously, often things don't turn out well, okay? And the Dharma says, well, if you look at this life, this actually happens on a much bigger scale over many, many lives. Okay, so that's one big topic that I just wanted to touch on. But that's the one thing about, the Dharma as a context which is different. I think the other thing which is kind of valuable is, even if we very much look to psychology and neuroscience for a lot of our inspiration and understanding, and so do I, you know, I find the neuroscience very interesting. It's very helpful still to understand how mindfulness emerged in the context it did within Buddhism, you know? Even if we don't choose to become a Buddhist, that's still a useful thing to look into, you know? And in Buddhism, there are three main turnings of the wheel of the Dharma, or three main phases that Buddhism has been through. And again, this is a huge topic, you know, we looked at on our retreat last year. And the first kind of turning of the wheel of the Dharma is what is called the Hinayana or Theravada level, the kind of original teachings of the Buddha. And that's where mindfulness was first taught as part of the Noble Eightfold Path, okay? So mindfulness sort of fitted into the context of, firstly, the Four Noble Truths. So basically, if you had to try to sum them up very simply, you know, that there is suffering in this life, okay? The first one. The second one is how we act, okay? There are causes to suffer. There are causes of suffering, and that very much relates to how we act, which comes down to karma, okay? But also there's a possibility of awakening. And again, there's a path that leads to awakening called the Noble Eightfold Path. And so mindfulness very much fits into the Noble Eightfold Path. But it doesn't exist alone there. It exists along with a view, a perspective, okay, that we can actually wake up from the dream we are in, you know, this dream we are in and we've been in for many lives, okay? And it's also very much linked to the idea that living ethically is very, very important, okay? So ethics is like a foundation, and on the basis of ethics being a foundation, we're going to really learn to stabilize the mind, okay? Calm the mind down, which is calm abiding practice. And on the basis of that, we're going to cultivate vipassana, or insight into the mechanisms that tie us into the habitual patterns that perpetuate suffering for us, okay? I'm just sort of talking, not on the hoof, but I'm just talking from my own kind of experience here. So very much, you know, mindfulness fits into a context, you know? There's this big picture of many lives, how how we act is very important. The kind of emotions that drive our actions is very important. To really get insight into our own mechanisms, our own habits of how we trap ourselves again and again and again is seen as being very important. And that's why we have calm abiding. That's why we have insight practice. And this all very much rests on living ethically, which in the Dharma is seen as so important. Because ethics gives a sanity and a simplicity to our life, which is so important, you know. Okay, so when I wrote this down on a bit of paper, it seems simple, but as soon as I start talking, it seems like a lot to say, and I don't want to say too much. So in each kind of, the second turning of the wheel of the Dharma was to do with the Mahayana, okay, the Mahayana path. And here compassion really comes to the forefront, and the idea of bodhicitta, the idea of the awakening heart, the idea of, I want to wake up from this spell I am under, this dream I'm in. And this dream has been going on for many, many lifetimes, okay? I want to wake up to it and see the emptiness of it. And I want to help bring all beings to the realization that they're caught up in a spell, partly of their own making through how they act. So here we get this big vision of bodhicitta, okay? The idea of that mindfulness serves the awakening heart of compassion. So mindfulness isn't just sort of like about stress reduction, or, making us feel calmer and more settled. It's serving bodhicitta, okay? So that's at the level of the Mahayana path. So just to complete this cycle, the third turning of the wheel of the Dharma, which is called Vajrayana, often connected with Tantra, very much connected with Tibetan Buddhism, is that what we're really trying to do here now is recognize the intrinsic purity that lies within us like a glittering jewel hidden beneath the mud of our everyday life, okay? Oh, well, somebody gave me a reassuring comment that is useful and interesting. That's good to know. Thank you. So in a way, within Vajrayana now, we are wanting to recognize our intrinsic nature, called Buddha nature, that actually, according to this approach, we have made a fundamental mistake. We've misidentified ourselves as being all the thoughts, the emotions, the dramas, the stories that have happened, okay? We've taken that to be who we are, and there's a big mistake there, because actually who we really are is something that lies behind that, like a glittering jewel in the mud that never got damaged, despite all the mud that got piled up on top of it, okay? So that's the kind of idea of Buddha nature in Buddhism. And so mindfulness here is the servant of the recognition of this intrinsic nature. So again, you see, mindfulness has a kind of, it's like the servant, It's allied to a deeper vision. It's not just mindfulness on its own. Now, I think this is where it is a bit tricky, because actually, if you truly practice mindfulness on its own and were true to that path, it might be that all these things that are taught in Buddhism just happen by themselves. I don't know. That's a big question, and it all depends. That's a really big question, because the mindfulness approach is very much experience is king. If you really are genuinely mindful and aware and kind and compassionate, all of this stuff that Buddhism teaches will just happen. Yeah, mindfulness is a tool, but it doesn't, what's the word? It might definitely help us to know about the context in which mindfulness emerged within Buddhism, It can't do any harm, okay? To know that mindfulness was originally part of the idea of the Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, first level, Mahayana level, mindfulness is very much serving the awakening heart of bodhicitta. Third level, mindfulness was about helping us recognize the intrinsic purity that we really are. Okay. So, you know, I think secular mindfulness is a really great thing. I've been through many stages. I've been through periods of feeling that I've kind of sold out, you know. I've sold out to secular mindfulness. You know, that, what am I doing, you know? Then I'll come back to a different view of actually, you know, I think secular mindfulness is extremely valuable and useful. And for some people, you know, I've been involved in Tibetan Buddhism a long time now. And for some people, they find it very hard to really navigate Tibetan Buddhism and actually really work out what the hell's going on here. You know, just walk into the Samye Ling temple and I'm like, my God, what's going on here, you know? So I think that secular mindfulness has a very important role in in a very down to earth, everyday way, you know, like it's very helpful to just be more grounded, more present, more aware, more accepting, more kind. I mean, these things are hugely helpful, okay, in one's life. And I also think that the psychological insights and neuroscience perspectives are very helpful too, because that's the world we're in, you know. But my one caution would be not to just limit the accepted paradigm of understanding to just be a materialistic one of neuroscience and the brain. I think there's a real problem there, you know. If the dominant paradigm just becomes to do with the brain, biological systems, you know, if one just stays within that paradigm, I think we could be missing something big. That's just my own hunch, you know, after having been involved in this game a long time. And I'm no kind of card-carrying traditional Tibetan Buddhist monk, as you might have gathered, you know, so I'm not some kind of fundamentalist type. But I have this sort of intuitive hunch that there's something really profound in the Buddha Dharma to explore as the context for the practice of mindfulness, which we're all doing, you know, even if you don't choose to become a Tibetan Buddhist. I mean, that's quite taken on quite a lot, you know. It brings to mind a story with one of the founders of Samye Ling. He was quite a character called Choden Trungpa, and he gave a talk in the early days in the 60s, and some people came along to a talk, and he said at the beginning of the talk, how many of you are Tibetan Buddhists? And I think a few put their hands up. And he said, look, to the rest of you, if I was you, I would just get up now and leave this talk and don't come back. Because once you start on this path, there's no turning back, you know. So, anyhow, so I'm not suggesting you all become card-carrying Buddhists, but I think that, yeah, the Buddha Dharma, there's something vast and valuable there. Yeah, so where am I going to in this talk is the question. I'm trying to go to some practices that I want to lead. But partly where I'm going to is that we had a discussion recently amongst the kind of people who are the vision holders of where we're going in the Mindfulness Association. And I think Heather made the comment that these days in mindfulness, there are three things that are becoming quite current or people are interested in. One is compassion, which we do already, because that's part of our kind of USB. Okay. We do. The other one is the kind of social dimension of mindfulness, which is becoming a really big thing now, to do with equality, diversity. You know, that actually mindfulness isn't just a practice to be done individually on one's own. It exists in social context. So we've got to take social context into account. And that's something we also really are looking into a lot. I think particularly Faye and Christine are taking the lead in that area. And our conference is about that this year. But the other area that people were very interested in was Buddhism, because obviously they kind of realized mindfulness comes out of Buddhism. So kind of, couldn't we know more about Buddhism, please? Was the kind of question. So obviously that's kind of partly my role as a monk, and Alan and I have been working on this too. So what we were thinking to do is to mirror each of the key trainings, okay, okay, so we look at mindfulness, okay, there's mindfulness, compassion, insight, okay, we do those modules. And the mindfulness one broadly relates to the first turning of the wheel of the Dharma, Hinayana Theravada, okay? So the kind of idea here is wouldn't it be not great if we could offer people the wider Buddhist context at this level, at the mindfulness level, to do with Four Noble Truths, Noble Eightfold Path, just so they got a sense of the context in which the practice of mindfulness originally developed, okay? And then the second one, compassion, we very much look at the four immeasurable qualities as a key one. But wouldn't it be also great if people could see the deeper context of bodhicitta, the awakening mind, which we touch on with the lotus and the mud idea. So the idea to offer people an insight and teachings around bodhicitta, okay? And then for the insight module and the wisdom module we're contemplating, wouldn't it be great to offer people some teachings into the Vajrayana level at its preliminary stages to do with Buddha nature, particularly the idea of Buddha nature, which is such a big one. The idea that despite all the ups and downs of our life, there's a part of us that always was intrinsically pure and whole and just waiting for us to recognize its face and come home, okay? That's the big idea of Buddha nature. So I think that's an idea we have right now, is for each of the three modules, mindfulness, compassion, insight, to offer the corresponding deeper Buddhist context to help one get a bigger picture, okay, of the mindfulness, the compassion, the insight. If I've made myself clear. So that's kind of what we that are really big topics. Looking forward to it. And I was thinking, that we have a retreat from the 26th to the 31st of October this year called Mindfulness to Buddhism. Last year I did that with Alan, but I realized when we were doing that, it was biting off a lot more than we could chew to try to cover the whole sweep of the Buddha Dharma, I mean, very ambitious. So the thought that came to my mind was to focus very much on the second level bodhicitta and the teachings around mind training or lojong, which are the teachings that hold the practice of Tonglen, taking and sending. So that's just an idea I have that I've briefly checked in with Alan. So instead of that retreat trying to cover everything, we just look at one topic, okay? And mind training or lojong is a very good one to start with, because it very much is the deeper context of Tonglen practice, which is a big practice. Okay, I feel like I sort of talked myself out and said more than I wanted to, and half an hour's already gone. But I hope I've just given you a sort of taste of, what more we might expect in terms of, looking to the Buddha Dharma as just simply a bigger context for understanding our practice of mindfulness, okay? Okay, so what I thought to do now was to be very ambitious and go straight to the third level, which is the kind of the notion of Buddha nature, okay? Because I think the view of Buddha nature the fact that despite everything that happened in our life, there's a part of us that never got messed up. Okay, that's such a profound one, and such a hopeful one, that I thought I'd just do 2 little practices around that. Okay, if I have time to do 2. And my sense with this stuff is you can only talk about it up to a point. The talking about it is helpful to inspire one and give one a context, but the most important thing is to get a felt sense of the terrain. And when we get a felt sense of the terrain, that really makes a difference. It's a bit like, we've lived in Scotland all our life, not in a place like Cape Town where I am now. And we've only ever seen the clouds. We've only heard about the sky. And one day the clouds part and we see the sky and the sun shines in the sky. And then we think, my God, I felt it. I've seen it. So the felt sense makes a big difference, And classically, in particularly Tibetan Buddhism, visualization is used to give one a felt sense, a kind of taste, an experience of the clear blue sky, so that we know what we're working with, we know where we're going, okay? And I would like to guide 2 practices, okay? I think some of you might have done these already. The one is called the 3 healing lights. And I think rather than talking about this practice, I'm just going to jump into it and lead it. But the basic point here, okay, the basic point here is that in the beginning, we don't think we have it. We don't believe it when people say that you are actually a Buddha in the disguise of being Choden, this Tibetan monk, okay? People don't believe it when they are told that who they are is really intrinsically pure. They need to go on a bit of a journey. And stage 1 in the journey is to receive grace and blessing and inspiration from something outside of one, okay? And then once we've done that, we start to get the feeling, well, maybe this is actually inside me. And then the second stage is we learn to step into our own power and become it, okay? So stage 1 is receiving it from a source outside. Stage 2 is we become it. Maybe a simple comparison here is in the compassion training. For those who have done it, you would first do the compassionate image practice to relate to the image outside. Once you receive the qualities from the image, you would then do the compassionate self practice and become it, okay? Okay, so this practice, 3 healing lights, normally I've guided it before at a mundane level, but I want to see if I can bring in the more profound level to this practice too, okay, which I'll talk through. Okay, so as always, we bring our attention to the body, to our posture. Sitting comfortably, sitting upright. And then bringing attention to the breathing. Just simply feeling the movement of the breath in your body. Just allowing it to naturally deepen. In breath, deepen, lengthen, out breath. And now imagine in front of you is a clear daylight sky. And then in the far distance is a morning star, right on the edge of the horizon. A speck of light like a morning star. So staying grounded in the body, staying lightly aware of the breathing, but also bringing your attention to this speck of light like a morning star. And as you pay attention to it, it gradually moves towards you, coming closer and closer. Until finally you can make out that it is a sphere, like an orb of rainbow-colored lights turning and swirling, containing great energy, vitality. Now imagine that this orb, this sphere of rainbow-colored lights, comes to a stop in front of you, a comfortable distance away. And even if you can't visualize clearly, just get a feeling of a presence of this energy in this sphere, like a healing energy, energy vitality. That contains within it all the healing energies of the universe. As well as the power of compassion and wisdom. So it represents a concentrated energy of healing, vitality, compassion, wisdom. Now, as you pay attention to it, a crystal clear white light streams out from it, entering you through the forehead. And imagining this crystal white light filling up your whole body and mind. Going more with the felt sense of being filled up. This radiant, bright, white light. And imagine that this crystal white light goes to all those parts of your body that are maybe feeling painful, where there's tension. Maybe illness. And it's like a healing light of vitality, filling your whole body and mind, raising your energy level. So this is the mundane level. Bringing healing to any physical pain or tension or illness. And now at the profound level, this healing white light helps you to see and experience your body as not being solid, but like a body of awareness and energy. It helps you to feel this. Our body is a body of awareness and energy flow. Now we imagine that this white light is drawn back into the sphere, the rainbow sphere in front of us. But the healing presence remains in the body. And now as we gaze at this wondrous rainbow sphere once again, imagine that a ruby red light streams out from it, entering you through the throat, filling up your whole body and mind with a lustrous, warm, red light. And this, at a mundane level, this red light heals any blocks in communication, any blocks in creative expression. And it also heals any wounds that come from speech, talking to others, and also self-talk. So just imagine, allow yourself to just feel a kind of warm red glow filling up your body and mind, raising your energy level. Healing any blocks in communication, creativity. And at a profound level, this ruby red light helps us experience the flow of energy in our body and mind as being intrinsically pure. That the energy of our being, whatever form it takes, is intrinsically pure. And just staying with that feeling for a few moments. now imagine the ruby red light is drawn back into the rainbow sphere in front of us. But the healing presence remains in our body and mind. Now, once again, as we gaze at this rainbow sphere in front of us, a lapis lazuli dark blue light streams out from it, enters us in the heart area. This is the center of the chest, heart chakra, filling up the body and mind. So imagine this blue, healing blue light streaming into you, filling you up, raising your energy level. And at a mundane level, this blue light heals any wounds of the heart. Any trauma we might be holding in body and mind, where it begins the healing. Imagine that any emotional wounds are held and bathed in this healing blue light that fills you up. So this healing blue light is like a balm for the suffering of the mind and heart. And at a profound level, the healing blue light gives us insight into the fact that none of our experience is solid and real like it feels. It's like we're under a spell of taking everything seriously. And this healing blue light helps dispel that, break the spell. And now imagine that the healing blue light is drawn back into the sphere in front of us. But the healing presence remains within us. And now the rainbow sphere gradually moves away into the clear blue sky, farther and farther away, until finally, once again, it becomes like a speck of light on the horizon, like a morning star. But thinking that any time we want to draw on it, all we need to do is look into the clear blue sky, to the speck of light on the horizon, and it will come towards us again. are just simply resting for a few moments, processing the three healing lights. Mind resting in the body, body resting on the ground. Really confident that at a mundane level, the sources of healing are now within you, active within you. And at a profound level, you are closer to touching the intrinsic purity that you truly are. Okay, so bringing our awareness back to the body, back to our breathing. And also aware of how we feel in this moment. Seeing if we can just simply make space for the thoughts, sensations, and emotions that might be present. Just gently saying yes to whatever is present for us now. And making the aspiration, the heartfelt wish, that we can touch that part of us that is intrinsically pure. It's actually already fully present right now as we sit. The eternal divine, the Buddha nature, goes by so many words. Making the wish that we can really recognize this part of us. Learn to abide in this part of us. And also make the wish that as we live our life, we can touch this intrinsic purity in others. Help them see it. Reflect it back to them. And help them to see that they were always profoundly at home. And at a deep level, all was always well.